Next up, at UFC 304, we have a surprising early slot here for Muhammad Mokaev and Manel Kape. These are two top flyweights. These are two guys that could make a very valid argument for a title shot with a win here, and they got buried in the prelims. I think my theory is, we talked about this a little early, is I think because of the start time of this event, they're literally trying to get people in that arena because this thing starts late as hell. It's going to go late as hell, and they don't want an empty, quiet, weirdo arena until the main card when people are literally waking up to go over there. So I do think that's why they have this here. But either way, we have basically a number one contender fight, right? Can you think of two other guys that would be in a number one contender fight at this weight class? Tatsuro Taira, but not really.
Charles Johnson should be in one.
He's on a 3-fight win streak, not quite the streak that these guys are on, but yeah, I mean, he's right there too. But we basically have a title, it's not officially, but essentially a title eliminator fight between Muhammad Mokaev. He just lost the fight. Muhammad Mokaev and Manel.
I mean, they're literally fighting here in a couple months or a couple weeks.
I know, but Urseg just lost, and isn't Kaikar France coming off a loss too? Like,
I mean, you just asked for. I'm just trying to give. I don't know why you got to dog me like that, Catherine.
Muhammad Mokaev undefeated in his career at 11-0, but he is coming off a pretty subpar performance against Alex Perez, taking on Manel Kape, 19-6, 4-1 in his last fight on a nice 4-fight win streak. Muhammad Mokaev, at this point, we know exactly who he is. This guy's an incredible wrestler. He's been competing his entire life. He's been wrestling since before he could walk. He has 7 fights in the UFC with 28 takedowns. Striking is not great. Neither is his control. That's why he has so many freaking takedowns. But his wrestling is nonstop. So is the pace. He is coming off that decision win over Alex Perez where he went 3 for 20 in takedowns. His striking looked pretty atrocious, but he did say that he had a staph infection, which in theory, if it's true, would have affected his performance. He's taking on Manel Kape. This guy's a fast, explosive striker. He has no issues chasing a knockout. He is a southpaw. He's got good pressure. He'll bounce in and out of that range really well. Decent wrestler. Nowhere near Mokaev's level, but a decent wrestler in his own right, and he uses it when he needs to. He will control that distance. He will close that distance, and he will try to put your lights out. Really fun guy to watch. Sometimes having a little too much fun. Takes a couple of chances, and he's coming off that fight of the night win over Felipe Dos Santos. If you believe...
Thank you, Catherine.
If you believe that Muhammad Mokaev had a staph infection in his last fight, and that's why he gassed, I think he's an easy pick here. I think he's an easy pick because that was the only bad performance of his career. But if you think he got a little bit exposed because he fought somebody who wasn't afraid to be there, he fought somebody who could defend some takedowns, and so we saw a little more of his striking than we normally see, which wasn't good. His cardio didn't hold up. Then you got to worry here because Manel Kape's going to be the best striker that Muhammad Mokaev has fought, period. And if Manel Kape can defend a few of those takedowns, certainly early, he can have a ton of success here. I am going to pick Mokaev, but I think the opening odds of the dead even are a little better than they are now. I think this is a very, very close fight. Obviously, we got striker versus grappler, but I think Manel Kape's definitely the more well-rounded fighter because the little bit of striking we saw in that Alex Perez fight from Muhammad Mokaev was not good. He is going to be the pick. I think all in on the wrestling is going to be the difference here. But what do you think, Jakey Bombalotes?
Yeah, I went back and forth on this fight. I mean, even people in Discord, this was the last one I left blank for the website because I just wanted to make sure that I really understood what was going on in this fight because I was so off-put by Mokaev in that last fight. I've already kind of been fading off the Mokaev train because if you look at him from his UFC debut till right now, he's the same fighter. And that's fine. Right? When you're coming through the rankings or whatever, you can just start smoking people. You got to unhide that guy. You timed him out. He was making fun of somebody else that said it. He was suspended. Somebody else said it earlier. But he's the exact same fighter as he is today that he was at the start of his UFC career. And that's fine because you can smoke the regional guys. But once you get up to this level, you have to start evolving, especially at this age. You should be improving so fast. You look at a guy like Tatsuro. He is really every single time you see him fight, you're like, wow, he is much better than the fight before. And you just don't see that with Mokaev. But I looked at this fight. I understand that Kape has power. He can also kind of wrestle in his own right. But he's just so low volume. And the fact that he tries to throw that big power, if you watch that fight versus Alex Perez, Mokaev did such a good job at timing his entries. Now, he wasn't able to get to the takedowns he usually does get to, but Alex Perez is a really, really high-level wrestler, too. He was expecting the takedowns. He did a really good job defending, but the timing of the takedowns was still there for Mokaev. He just wasn't able to get them. So with the same timing against a guy like Kape, who's probably going to load up a little bit, I think he can get those takedowns against Kape and really wear this guy down, and he won't get quite as worn down as he was when all those shots were getting stuffed. Because if he's on your back, he can do that all day. It's just getting to those positions. So I looked at it. I double looked at it. I feel pretty good about Mokaev. Obviously, if he fucks around on the feet, he could get knocked out because he's not really good in the striking at all. But he should be able to get the takedowns and win.
Yeah, I mean, I went back and forth quite a bit. There's 2 fights in this card I went back and forth with. This one and then the CLD fight that we'll break down later. I mean, the striking that we saw from him was so bad. It was so bad.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten any better. He thinks, and the issue is he thinks it's getting better. Like, I'm sure when he's in the gym or whatever, he's like, oh, I'm getting fast or whatever. And that's going to catch up to you. I mean, I said that last week in that Cody Durden fight. As we were watching it live on a live stream, I said, I'm glad that he's having all the success he's having on the feet because eventually he's going to get caught because he's not as good. And I said that all week. I said he thinks he's better on the striker than he is. And I say eventually he's going to get caught. And that could happen with Mokaev here, but I hope not. I think he's going to be my pick.
Yeah, he's going to be my pick too. And somebody commented, like, I agree with you. He's not evolving. But at this point, he's undefeated. He could be the next Khabib. I think that's a little bit of exaggeration because Khabib actually had good striking and did improve.
And he also started as not a very good striker, but he evolved his striking. Yeah. And then he kind of beat the fuck out of Justin Gaethje.
But Mokaev, I said he has 7 fights in the UFC. He's not a UFC newcomer anymore. He's been here a little while. Yeah. So those improvements.
And he's still got time to figure it out. I mean,
100%. No, and he's not. Listen, we're trashing the striking. It's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. But in that last fight, it was the most striking we've seen him do, and it was not impressive. It comes down to, do you think he actually had a staph infection? He probably did, but that wasn't an excuse that came out until like 4 days later when he saw that
even if he didn't, like, you're going to get tired chasing takedowns as much as he does, and against somebody that's so defensively sound that makes you work like an Alex Perez. So even if he didn't, it's like, I mean, that just happens sometimes when you're working hard, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and staph infection seems to be the latest excuse for a lot of people. And he won that fight, and I don't think it was like controversial. I thought he won that fight. So I don't know why he felt like he had to come out with a bunch of excuses, but he did wait a few days and then was like, "Why? I had a staph infection. That was my problem." So either way, $8,400 in DraftKings. If you're on the Muhammad Mokaev side, then obviously you think he wrestles his way to a win, potentially snatches up a submission. So he is going to be incredible value at that $8,400 because he doesn't have a single fight in the UFC where he hasn't scored a ton of points. And if you're on that side, this is another one. I do think I'm on that side. I do think I'll have him in my DraftKings lineup. But if you do want to unlock all of our picks, all of our bets, the DraftKings Plays, the data analyzer, which is literally the greatest research tool in the history of this space, you can do so now. It's only $10 for an entire month. You will get UFC 304, UFC Abu Dhabi, the 2 cards after that. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top.